stuff in that field. For instance, we recover 50,000 tons of PET, that PET bottles. You can recover that PET in Switzerland. We are very good at it, and produce it up to a quality level which is suitable for the food industry.
In this episode, I'm talking with Christophe Gence, ETH alumni, CEO and delegate of the board of Paprec in Switzerland. This is the We Are ETH podcast, and I am Susan Kish, your host. Christophe, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning, Susan.
I'm jealous because you're in the studio at LA Media, which I think is just such a cool space, and I do hope you had a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I've got everything I needed, and the weather is beautiful. Blue sky in Zurich.
This sounds rather ideal. So, if I recall, you used to travel all the time, all around the world, right?
Yeah, I used to probably travel 300,000 miles a year across the globe, and I've been working in different countries, Germany, France, US, back to Germany, and I'm now back in Switzerland for 9 years, back in Zurich after so many years. And I'm now driving, not flying.
What a change. But I have 3 business travel questions. First off, what is your favorite airport in the world?
That's a good question. I love to land in Cape Town. I used to go once 1 week every 2 months for 5 years, and traveling a lot in South Africa. And I used to go to that country. But when you go to 40, 50 different countries, you have seen also small airplanes in Nepal, which were also funny, where you had no real mean to get into the plane. So
no real means. So what, you climbed up the wing?
Yeah,
how did you do this?
It was a bit like climbing into the plane.
That's wild.
We were getting into the plane as we were getting onto the elephant. It's no joke. It was the same
process. Well, for all of us who, really familiar with how you ride elephants, that's a really good analogy, but I can imagine it, right? So tell us the story of how you joined the team at Paprec.
Paprec, it's an amazing story. I worked for 2 companies in my life. I worked for Plastic Omnium, which is a family-owned company in the automotive business for over 25 years. But at that time, they had various divisions. So I also went to Houston in Texas, working in the high-tech plastic for the oil industry, for the semicon. And I came back and worked in the services in Europe in the environmental division. And I was asked in 2012 to take over a company in bad shape in Germany. And I went there. And one supplier I introduced there in the recycled plastic was Paprec. So the company I'm now working for. And I used to buy recycled plastic from that company. And after 3 years, they came to me and said, listen, we know you have a dual citizenship, French and Swiss. Are you ready to come to our company and to go work in Switzerland? And at the beginning, I was a bit, I didn't know. I liked the business, but I was not sure of quitting my company. And I moved to that company for probably 2 reasons. The first one, I had long time ago one of my customer in Copenhagen, capital of Denmark, in the waste management. And the guy managing the waste there was a foundation. And that foundation used to recycle many products.
A foundation meaning a non-profit entity? Is that what you mean by a foundation?
It was a non-profit, and they were managing the waste management organization. It was not a public structure. It was really a foundation. And the guy, president of that foundation, one day took me around in Copenhagen and showed me everything they were doing with the old materials. And I kept that in the back of my head. I was very impressed. And then I met the founder of Paprec, another family-owned company. And he said to me, look at what I've done in France, and I want to do the same in Switzerland and in other countries in the world. And I had 2 lunches with him. And my 2 interviews were only lunch. And at the end of each lunch, he had 25 pages of notes. It was for me the first time, that guy is very successful. And he was writing the whole time, and I was not used to it. It was lunchtime. It was not a meeting, lunchtime. And he interviewed and looked at how you were eating and if you were able to talk and conversation, topics, subjects, how you react. It was quite amazing. And I learned afterwards that's the way he was doing interviews with his candidates, lunch or dinner.
What was it that you found when you went to Copenhagen and you saw what the gentleman was doing with recycled goods? Was it this sort of hunt for treasure of what is it? Or was it a sense of we're in a closed world and we better figure out how to use our waste? Or what sparked your interest?
At that time, I must say, it was the ability to use waste as raw material. That's what I discovered. And as a kid, I was having recycling as a dirty thing, stinking.
Like a garbage man, quote
garbage.
unquote.
But, recovery as it was not always garbage, but, the recovery as kids was dirty and was not for people, for educated people, it was for people trying to live off collecting a bit of copper, a bit of aluminium, a bit of paper, textile, whatever. And that guy told me what they were doing and that they were using that waste as secondary raw materials. So I was very interested in it as an engineer. And when I discovered Paprec, the goal of Paprec in the first instances was to produce secondary raw materials, whatever it is. So you take everything that we produce as wastes, as an industry, as a resale company, or as a private person, and what you do with it. And nowadays, that's what we do. We try to do our best. And I also discovered the advantage. So you protect the resources by reusing. You drastically reduce CO2 emissions because when you reuse, you use less energy to process that raw material. So it's a fantastic area and very in our today's expectations. So I'm very happy to be in that branch. I would have never thought as an ETH student to go into that field, to be honest. And we do have some high-tech stuff in that field. That's also interesting. People don't always know it, but there are some great technologies being used. Also in the food industry, for instance, we recover 50,000 tons of PET, that PET bottles. And there's a lot of critique on plastics, but I worked for almost 30 years in the plastic industry. And you can recover that PET in Switzerland. We are very good at it. And produce it up to a quality level which is suitable for the food industry. So that's very impressive, I must say.
Are there additional areas where in a country like Switzerland you foresee they'll be able to recycle more? I mean, how much of our lives can we effectively recycle?
So it's a very interesting question. I think Switzerland started very early to recycle by sorting on the source, at the source, as we say. So it means for us, a private person at home, we've got different boxes where you separate at home the glass, the aluminium, the plastics, the cardboard, and so on. And then you go on weekends to the dedicated places to dispose of it. And it happened like that because there was no means to sort it automatically. And nowadays, if you look at what is being done in the other countries in Europe, people collect the waste completely mixed up. That means you've got some yellow bags or
Actually,
yellow
we do
bin.
that here in the States.
Yes, and you've got a collection of everything mixed up.
Yeah.
And then it gets to our companies, and we have huge sorting means automatically with different technology because of the weight, the light, the magnetism, and we sort it automatically. At the end, we have a few people to make the rest of it, but you've got probably over 95% automatically sorted. What's not really recycled in Switzerland for the time being are household plastics.
What's a household plastic? What does that
It's
mean?
the bottle of shampoo, bottle of soap that you've got in the kitchen,
Right, those
the
sort of hard
packaging you have in the
plastics.
food, and it does represent an amount of waste. But because of the legislation, that waste used to belong to the municipalities. So they were happy to get that plastic to burn it. And it was like free energy that they could burn into their furnaces to produce some electricity and heat.
And really high
Nowadays,
temperatures, though. You
yes.
would have to burn that at super high
Yes.
heat. Okay.
And it's a lot of energy,
Right.
the plastics. Nowadays, people try to protect the resources, try to reduce the CO2 emissions. So it has evolved. And the collection of household plastics is now starting in Switzerland. But we are very behind the other countries. So that's the field that will grow in the next 5 to 10 years. Countries using modern technology will be able to catch up rapidly.
What new technology? I can see you'd have optical and weighing and some sort of density or chemical composition ones. It feels like it's someplace where mechanical engineering and AI patterns and
Yes.
materials science and chemistry and all those different fields intersect to do this
So
most
let me
efficiently.
give you a few examples beside the technologies I mentioned earlier.
Right.
I was talking about that plastic for the food industry.
Right.
In the food industry, when you have some cereals you want to sort, you are trying to sort the bad cereals out of the amount that you are using in your production. For plastic, it's very the same. You have small pellets, and when you have transparent pellets, it's okay. If you have pellets with a black mark, you want to be sure that it's being separated from the rest. So it's very high-end technologies. Second example, it's not developed for the time being, it's coming. You have the AI, which is used by waste collection. There is one company in Zurich doing the waste collection of the city, who has a pilot on it. They have cameras in the trucks of collection, and they can identify the pollution. So they are trying to collect green waste. Green waste to do some compost and some biogas, and they want to exclude everything which is not green waste. So they use the AI to identify it and say, I'm collecting that area of the city properly, it's green. I'm collecting that one, it's solala, orange, and that one is really bad. So the truck has a signal saying it's garbage. You don't use that material. There's too much pollution in it.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's
Yes.
really interesting. So one area that I read a lot about recycling critical materials is around batteries, especially lithium batteries, and the whole EV world. Is that an area of interest? Is that a part of where your industry is looking?
So globally, the electronic products that needs to be recovered is a field which is growing a lot. Some of it has already been done. In Switzerland, when you buy a new product, you buy actually also the recycling of it.
What do you
Batteries,
mean?
yes,
what does that
you buy
actually
a
mean?
TV or you buy a PC,
Yeah.
computer. Then you have a small amount of money that you pay to a recycling organization that is in charge of collecting those products and making sure they are recycled.
So part of your purchase contract is
Yes.
sort of a prepaid voucher to have somebody
Yes.
come pick up your
Yes.
TV and recycle
Yes.
it? That's
you can
cool.
dispose of it anywhere in Switzerland in shops or in recycling areas, and we have to take it back, and we get paid for it through those recycling organism, and it's working
That's
very
cool.
well. For batteries, it's a bit more complicated because of the technologies that are getting involved. Right now, because of the electrical cars, it's a field that is growing. I would not say we have the perfect solution for the time being, but it will come. It's just a matter of time and profitability. You cannot, as a private company, you cannot waste your money. So you need to find that critical level of profitability to make it happen. But it will come. I have no doubt about it.
You mentioned that you have worked at two companies, and that your first company was a family-owned plastics company in Germany.
Yes.
How did you go from mechanical engineering at the ETH to plastics? Because that wonderful movie, The Graduate, which has that line of plastics, young man, right, is the way of the future. That movie had come out a little bit before, I bet, you had made that career choice. So what inspired you to move into plastics?
After graduating from ETH, so I graduated in mechanical engineering and business management in ETH. And I wanted to work in Germany, and I was almost going to also an automotive company.
88 is before the wall came down, right? 88 would have meant West Germany.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a good thing because I've got some experience about that time as well, as I was in Germany. And so I started searching for a job. I was almost going to that glass company in Germany. And then I talked to one of my uncle who had been also graduating from ETH and who had been working for Plasticomium, my first company. And he said to me, you should contact them. You never know. So I wrote to the boss, and the boss said, "Oh, it's amazing you were writing me because we signed a month ago a big contract with BMW in Munich, and we need something like you. In France, there's not so many people can talk German." So I started there. I went working there in France for 1 year, and then I moved to Bavaria. And that's how I joined that company. So networking is important. Talk to your people, and it's always true. Whether as a young engineer or over the years, the networking, you learn a lot. It's a good way to develop your business, your relationship, whether they are professional or private. By the way,
how did your years at ETH and what you studied impact your career and what you do today?
I think the interesting point is that it was, for me, an eye-opener because of the culture. Switzerland is very, not only international, but also having those different cultures, the federal system, those 26 cantons, those 4 languages, very different. I remember it was difficult because my German was poor, and we were working hard. I was losing some of my friends because the first 2 years, some of the people don't pass their exams. And I was always saying, you've got 30% of the people not passing their exams for the first 2 years.
That's hard.
So when you're a young guy, you don't have your family around you, and you lose. It's not really losing, but you see your friends not staying at ETH, doing something else. It was a bit difficult. But at the end, my experience in Zurich was fantastic, and I loved it.
Fantastic. Christophe, thank you. That was a great conversation.
Thank you, Susan.
We typically ask our guests a series of standard questions to close the interview. So the first one is, when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I was probably willing to stay in the countryside and maybe be a farmer. I don't know, but I did like to stay in the country. Mm-hmm. I was going very often in the countryside with my father. So even though he was not a farmer, but I did like to stay there.
What are you curious about today? What are you learning about now?
So I try to keep up with the technology. That's one interesting thing. I've got 4 boys.
4?
One did mechanical engineering, ETH, hotel management in Lausanne, one in business in Paris, and the last one, computer science in Lausanne and now Zurich. So they're all in different fields. They are all working in the IT. So at my time, as you said, you were surprised about plastics. And I think nowadays, the IT is so important. And with the development of the AI, I try to keep up with it. And it's difficult, but it's a must. And I will try to continue being up to date.
Christophe, thank you. That was great.
Thanks all.
I'm Susan Kish, host of the We Are ETH series, telling the story of the alumni and friends of the ETH in Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. ETH regularly ranks amongst the top universities in the world for cutting-edge research, science, and their people. The people who were there, the people who are there, and the people who will be there. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you listen and give us a good rating on Spotify or Apple or YouTube if you appreciated today's conversation. I'd like to close by thanking our producers, LE Media and the ETH alumni, and especially to thank you, our listeners, for joining us.